Good evening, morning, wherever you are. This is CW, and we welcome you back to the GOATcast podcast, where I will be discussing Black Panther Wakanda Forever, the sequel to Black Panther. I saw it today, so I'm a little late, but I will talk about what I liked, what I didn't like. Well, I'm gonna do the good, the iffy, and of course what I didn't like, and we'll grade it. This one will be warning. This is gonna be spoilers. Uh, it's just easier to do that instead of trying to do two different ones. I'm gonna just give all my thoughts in this one. So if you have not seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, I would suggest not listening any further than now. So yeah, I would go ahead and click off because once I start, I'll be heavy into the the spoilers. So I'm not gonna do a just a recap of the whole movie. I'm not gonna do a play-by-play or anything like that. But I will be discussing some things in the movie that weren't in the trailer, so stuff you may not know. So we're going to discuss that in Phase 4. This is what I'm hearing, the last movie in Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're different phases, so this is the fourth phase of that. So we are. I will say this: the Phase 4 has been a difficult one for Marvel. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but I'm going to say this real quick. The launching of Disney Plus and, their now ability to kind of transition between series and movies and then trying to intertwine those two things. I don't dislike it, but at the same time, I think it becomes it just becomes cumbersome sometimes because there's a lot to digest, and we still don't quite. We know where they're going is somewhere into the multiverse, and they're starting to bring in characters like Kang, who of course is a time traveler. He's going to be the big bad. I guess he's going to be the Thanos of this phase. So I don't know. It's just been kind of hit and miss when it comes to these movies, and when you start blending in the shows, it's like there's a lot. Like I said, there's a lot to digest, and they just haven't captured the same magic they did with the first couple of phases where they were building up to the Infinity War and Thanos, and they kind of put each character into their own little mini arc or story to kind of bridge everything over. And I thought that worked well here. It might work great once we get to the we don't know what the, for lack of a better word, end game is for these phases and where they're going with it. So they could absolutely knock it out of the park, and then we'll look back on these movies and be like, okay, so they did this for this and that for that. But right now, as it stands, it's just not it's just not working. But I will say this as I begin my review. This was probably, out of all the movies, like certain Marvel movies from, I'm guessing this phase, because I've got to look up, all the movies that encompass this phase, but most of them I had no expectations. Shang-Chi, The Eternals, those movies I really had no kind of, because I didn't have any attachment to those characters. So I really had no expectation, and I enjoyed Shang-Chi. Eternals, not so much. But I felt like Shang-Chi was a very well done piece of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But then we had Spider-Man: No Way Home. We had Doctor Strange. We had Thor: Love and Thunder. With those, I did have some expectations, especially for whatever reason, because I thought that the first Doctor Strange was plotting. It was trying to him up, and they did it in a way that was probably the most well, that was probably the oddest MCU movie because it just didn't have the elements that most of them have. So it felt out of place a little bit. It was slower to me. It was kind of boring. It was trying to explain things, and you just couldn't resonate with it. So I thought, well, shoot, part two. They've already established Doctor Strange, his powers, what he can do. I thought he was really cool in Infinity War. He was really cool in Endgame. They kind of dropped the ball in No Way Home, so it's like they're going to knock this out of the park. Doctor Strange is going to do some really cool stuff. We're going to see a lot of, just really awesome visuals, and I didn't know where they were going to go with it, but I thought we'd see characters from here and there, and it's just going to be just this, this wild ride. And it disappointed me so much. I came out the theater and I was like, man, that was not good. No Way Home I thought was great, but I think we rate it higher because of the cool factor of the other Spider-Man, Peter Parker's being a part of it, those big surprises, and then just kind of intertwining the other Sony movies into that. It was cool to see that, cool to see the villains and all that. From a story perspective, it was fine, and it sets up a lot. At least that one did set up something to go further with. And Doctor Strange did too, but nah. And then Love and Thunder, Thor. I don't know what to say about it. I was extremely disappointed, even though I didn't have high expectations. I didn't think they would really, after Ragnarok, I think if they're going back to this well, I don't think it's going to work as good. And I was right. It just didn't work. So now came Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. And I have to say my expectations were lowered because I just didn't know how they would make this work. Because I was really a fan of Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther, and the fact that he passed away tragically, it made me think, how are they going to do this? And that's what everybody was saying. How are you going to do this? And we found out that they're not going to replace him. They're not going to CGI and do all that stuff, deep fake and all that. So how would they make this work where it doesn't seem like they're just, I was going to say they're going to act like he just went on a mission, just never came back, or, silly stuff like that. Like, how can they do this in a way that is going to continue the story, make sense, and make the fans happy? And I think that for what happened and everything that had to go on in it, Ryan Coogler, who is the director, he had written this before, the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman. So he had to rewrite the entire movie that probably set up a lot in the MCU. So he had to go back and redo all of that to make it fit, to make it, still continue, because it's still in the Marvel timeline. So it still has to continue the Marvel stuff, and it still has to, be a comic book movie, but at the same time you have you have to let a character that was the character of the whole movie, you have to find a way to let him go and tell a good story. And for me, I think they accomplished that. I see a lot of people saying different things and kind of on the fence about this. Some people were disappointed. Some people thought it was a step down. I will say, I didn't just think it was great. I think it was, I didn't just like it, I loved it. And like I said, I'm going to start with the good of it and then transition from there. I'll give a final grade at the end. What really worked for me was, I think that them addressing the Black Panther stuff, T'Challa, early. That's the opening scene. He's on his deathbed, and Shuri's trying to find something to save him. Yeah, I won't say that, and I hate to say it like this, but I think what happened in Black Panther 1 perfectly helped them to transition to this one with what happened, because Killmonger destroying all of the heart medicine stuff, the heart root or whatever. I thought that them not having that to revive him or to help him throughout whatever disease he had, whatever ailment he had, I think that made it, you could understand it. You could feel it felt like it was natural that happened, and that could really happen. So, I think they handled his death well. You get the whole mourning of the Wakanda. You get, them, getting rid of the, raising the casket, I guess, putting it in their little jet thing. And I guess, I don't know if they take him out to sea or what they do, but you saw all that. They had Black Panther's insignia on the casket, and it was just a cool way to, and they opened it with the silence, a moment of silence, and I thought that was really, really cool. Really hits you hard, when they show the footage and you just see him, and then he's not there anymore. It sets the tone for the movie, I think, and in a good way mostly. It is sad, but we're celebrating him, but we got to move on. We got to move forward. Can't dwell on it. So from there, I felt like the first act with Angela Bassett's character, Queen Ramonda, kind of having to take up the position of the head of all of Wakanda. They show how hard that is, and she has to grieve over her son that's passed, and she's got to try to look out for her daughter during this time and try to be there for her and try to be there for an entire civilization, entire country. So it shows the ills that takes, but it also shows that she's strong, that she was meant for that role and she could step up into that role, and they show her doing it seamlessly. And then you see Shuri kind of, she just can't quite grasp what happened, and she's just kind of trying to dive into her tech stuff and things like that to really take her mind off the grieving process. So I thought that was handled fairly well. It does drag a little bit because you're like, cool, this is cool. We get to see these characters and we get to see them interacting and to see how they're handling things. But where's the villain? Where's the, it's a superhero movie. You got to have a super villain. But I think they handled that well. I think that, how they introduce Namor, how they introduce his people. I'm not going to try to butcher these names. They're the Namor's people, blue people in the water. I like how because it was really creepy. They did, and that's something that's happened now twice in Phase 4, where like Scarlet Witch in Doctor Strange, she was really, you had creepy vibes from her, and when she was chasing Doctor Strange and what's her name, America, I think it was. That had a scary vibe to it, tense vibe, and this too when they were underwater and they um, had their vibranium finder or whatever you want to call it. They had that down there, and then they're attacked by those sea creatures, and then all of a sudden you have, uh, they come and attack the boat, and so it was cool. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not gonna do a blow by blow. So I skip. So just the good. I think the villains, that the way they finally bring in who will be the antagonist in this movie, I thought was done well. Namor, I thought was great. I thought he was one of the coolest villains. I see people kind of comparing him to Magneto, and this is spoilers, but I'm not going to go into his backstory and things like that. But you see how he would feel about the things that he feels strongly about, and you could see where he could be. He's not evil. He's not a bad guy, but he just has a differing philosophy. Just like Magneto, who a lot of people are comparing to. Magneto helped the X-Men. Magneto fought the X-Men. And you could kind of see that from Namor, that he could be that kind of character that will definitely help them from time to time. And he was even very cordial with them, early on. But you also see if he pushes buttons, he'll be your worst nightmare. And I thought that was cool. And, he had a motivation that to me pretty much made sense. They want to keep the vibranium from them. They don't want them to find out about their civilization and things like that. And they want to keep things the way they are. And, they felt like Wakanda, since they thought they were the only manufacturer of that, would want to team up to make sure that that stuff doesn't fall into the wrong hands. So, great motivation for the villain, a great villain. It was well acted. He was intimidating when he wanted to, but just like a lot of Marvel villains, you could kind of get behind him. You didn't feel, you didn't want him. Later on, you kind of want him dead, but you didn't really want him hurt because he really wasn't doing anything terrible. He just had a different philosophy on how to handle his people and what needed to be done to make sure his people are safe and that their resources won't be taken away from them. So kudos to Namor. He's probably one of my top 5 favorite villains in all of Marvel, and I hope he comes back. I hope he has a prominent role in anything they have going forward. Namor was a guy I didn't know how they would handle. He's a cool character in the comic books from time to time. He's really strong. So I think they conveyed that well. I think they, it took them a while, but once you saw what Namor really could do, you're like, wow, it's gonna be tough for them to bring this guy down. And I thought they showed that and conveyed that well. I thought the second act, once he gets involved, I thought it picked up some. Then when Lupita Nyong'o's character Nakia comes in, I felt like it slowed down a little bit more when when Namor takes Shuri and I'm gonna call it Ironheart, but the person that everyone's looking for. I'm like I said, I'm not gonna go through the whole movie. Yes, Namor, the government, they're looking for somebody that he's trying to find the person that created the vibranium finder, and he wants to kill him. So they're on this mission to make sure she's safe, to keep her away from him, and we'll talk about that later. But so yeah, so that part when they're taken to his kingdom, I thought was cool. But like I said, it did drag some, and that's where they lost me a little bit. and I'll talk about another what really lost me later. But so I thought the second act was cool, and then especially once uh, Nakia ends up saving. She ends up saving Shuri and Ironheart and getting them back to Wakanda. And Queen Ramonda, she sets things up to where she's going at Namor because you could tell that she's a mother and she's had so much loss that she just can't, by any means necessary, she cannot have something happen to Shuri because that would be all of her family. And so she may not be thinking logically. Okoye, who, the warrior, Dori Milaje, I can never pronounce that properly, but, the head of that, they get into it because, she takes her to the U.S., Shuri, to find the girl, and then, of course, Namor and his people capture them too while they're in America. So that's how they bridge into America. They have to do some stuff there. Uh, so anyway, that's when once that happens and they rescue Shuri and Ironheart, get them back to Wakanda. That's when I think the movie just really rolls for me. Because once Namor finds out about all this, he loses it, and he goes and he attacks. They have a full-on attack in Wakanda. They have these water bombs that are just going off and taking them out. And I thought that was great, and I think that's when really the movie kicked into the gear that you wanted it to, and from there, it paced itself pretty well. Some gripes there for pacing still, but it paced itself really well. It had interactions with characters where you're still kind of wondering, you want more from those characters. Okoye is very much prevalent in the beginning of the movie into the second act, and then she kind of tapers off, and then you don't really get a lot of her until later on when we're getting close to the climax. Same with M'Baku. He's in there. He's sprinkled in there, and he's a big part, but you don't get enough of him. He's there, but he doesn't feel like a major player. If you ask me, he's there to show how strong Namor is. He's there at times for comic relief. He's there to kind of show that he's going to fill that big brother role that Shuri lost with T'Challa. But you don't, some of his motivation is, especially towards the end, you just not quite sure about. And like I said, he could have been in there. Those two characters, M'Baku and Okoye, could have been. I mean, you could have had them in more scenes and took out some other characters that I'm gonna talk to when I talk about what I didn't like about this. But I mean, all in all, I think those characters were used fairly well. But like I said, they could have been in it more. The action at the end I thought was great. I thought the final fight was better than the one in the first Black Panther. The first Black Panther, I thought the final fight was very rushed. Here, I think, they set it up well. It had time to breathe. You didn't get Namor and the new Black Panther right away. Of course, spoiler alert, Shuri is the new Black Panther. She's able to, actually, Namor helps her in a way because he gives us these beads with some type of herb in it that helps her create the heart essence or whatever, incense or whatever that you have to drink. And so she's able to go into the realm. She sees, another spoiler, doesn't see T'Challa. She doesn't see her mom, who has died. I kind of skipped that, but yes, Queen Ramonda dies during the attack from Namor, and and she doesn't see her father. Who does she see? Her cousin, Killmonger. So he's kind of like, they're two alike. They're kind of alike. She needs to embrace that she wants this revenge. She wants to do things the rough way. She doesn't want to do it the noble way, like her brother would, or maybe her dad would. You know, he just felt like, she's no different than him now, that she's got all this weight on her and all this loss, and just she's, by any means necessary, she's going to try to put Namor away, killing her mother for messing up their Wakanda, their country. She's going to do whatever is necessary to put him away. So she kind of embraces that. And I thought that was a cool cameo. Someone had kind of spoiled it, but it was still cool to see him there. And had I not been spoiled, that would have been cool. Because most people would expect it. Her mom, because evidently Ryan Coogler said he's not going to have T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman, in it at all. And he's not in it. His memory's in there. I'll say that, but he's not in there. They don't try to put him in there like he's actually in a scene. So without them doing that, I thought maybe her dad, maybe her mom, because she had just passed, but no, it was Killmonger. So then, so once she becomes Black Panther, she's all about that. She's all about revenge. She's all about getting Namor. So we get to that big, her and Ironheart figure out what to do, what is making him so powerful, and they finally come up with the plan, and they execute the plan. And I thought the final fight was great. I thought the resolution was great. So all in all, like I said, I know the good is kind of all over the place because I started, getting into parts of the movie, but I thought how they started, how they, are able to put Black Panther or T'Challa to rest, how, they show the process of their grieving and process of them trying to take over and do the right things. I liked Namor and his people coming in, and I liked their motivation. I liked Namor's his character, where he's not evil. He's not an evil person, but he can. But he will punish you, but he is not evil. I like the action for the most part. And I like, the characters that really delivered were Queen Ramonda, Angela Bassett, Shuri, Letitia Wright, and I'm not even going to try to butcher Namor's name, but the actor that played him blew it away. So I liked all of that. Like I said, I liked the end. I liked how it ended. I liked how it started. I liked once Namor came in. I thought it had some pacing problems, but I like how he was introduced. Once he attacks Wakanda, from that point on, I enjoyed most of all the rest of the movie. Now, things I'm iffy on, and things I hear a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I hear some people talking about, it's somewhat of a retelling of, it kind of has the same kind of plot points that the first Black Panther had, of, T'Challa having to go through those trials and to really embrace what he's going to be and become, and the challenges of that, and if he's ready to do it. If he's ready to go to certain lengths to be the leader of Wakanda and of that country and do it the right way. Shuri's story kind of mirrors that, so I can see people having an issue with that they're just kind of retold T'Challa's story with Shuri. So you're actually getting the same story twice, just different settings and different characters and different different motivations. But I could see that. So I'm a little iffy on that. They could have gone left with it. I thought maybe, and some people say maybe Okoye is going to be Black Panther, or maybe Nakia, Lupita Nyong'o's character would take up. You know, we thought maybe there was a red herring, and Shuri's going through all of this wasn't to create her becoming Black Panther, but her setting herself up to be the queen, but to pass that mantle, uh, that position to one of her other countrywomen. But that's not what happened. So I wasn't that wasn't that bad to me. I mean, considering the circumstances, I mean, you got to kind of give him a little leeway because he had to rewrite this whole thing because someone tragically passed. So I give him I give him some slack for that. The lack of action, I think, does bring this movie down a little bit because it is a Marvel movie. It is a superhero comic book movie. So not having a ton of action in it does kind of, and more story driven is fine. But in a movie like this, with the characters they had and with, the stakes they were having, it was kind of odd that there was so little action until the end. And it took them a while for them to really, like I said, it took them almost maybe mid-movie for them to really show what Namor could really do. Um, and that's been the case with certain villains in the MCU, but you usually get to see them do something early on that shows you, okay, this is going to be a challenge for them, and then you get to the climax and things like that. So I do think that the lack of action is somewhat of an issue, but not a big issue. And I'm at 32 minutes. So I'm trying to go a little quicker. So that's pretty much my iffy part. What I didn't like were two characters, and I think most people agree. Everett Ross, the character played by Martin Freeman, the American that was in the first one, you could have took a chunk of his scenes out, and it really wouldn't have made a huge deal. He is kind of, still connected to the Wakandans. So they try to play that up, and he's somehow conveniently the ex of Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, who we saw in Falcon and Winter Soldier, the person that's basically going to lead the Thunderbolts. I'm thinking because she's the one that went and set up U.S. agent so she's in it, and yeah, so his, his parts didn't really. He was there for the sake of him being there. They having legacy characters come back. That's how I feel. You could have. His part could have been one scene, one or two scenes, and that'd be it. His stuff shouldn't have lasted as long as it did. And I also really feel like Ironheart, the girl, yes, she's a major part of this. She is a huge plot point in this because that's who Namor wants to kill, and that's what has drawn this somewhat animosity between Wakanda and his people. But I think they should have done less with her because her plot point was made, but everything she did beyond that didn't work for me. And I think that they could have built up to her being Ironheart in another movie. They could have laid the groundwork for her to be that, and you obviously knew that from her ability to create all kinds of things. But you could have waited until, say, she was in the Don Cheadle, the War Machine movie, the Armored Core or something like that. I think they're going to make that into a movie. They could have waited to have her introduce her suit there. Or, Wakanda could have gifted her that suit down the line. That could have been an end credit scene or something like that. But she didn't have to play a part so much in this movie because it didn't really add anything. You really at times forget she's even there until it's convenient for her to be there. And other than the fact that she's kind of the catalyst that brings everything together, you could have had her they could have just like, we're going to put you in this bunker so that he can't get to you. And then, once we finish taking care of him, we'll come get you. They could have done that and it wouldn't have changed nothing. Like, she didn't add anything to it. So none of her tech meant anything to it. She had a little redemption at the end, but I feel like because of what happened and her being a part of the death of Queen Ramonda, I thought she should have, had something to say about that at the end, especially when her and Shuri are together when she's about to leave. The fact that Shuri fixed her car that they had destroyed when they were in the U.S., that was a cool thing. But I felt like she should have said something about, her playing a part in her mother's death, as far as her being the reason why Namor and them are even there. And plus her being in that same room from Queen Ramonda trying to protect her. Queen Ramonda protecting her is the reason why she died, because she drowned trying to, getting her from, sinking into that water, that attack. So I felt she should have had some kind of dialogue to Shuri to say, I'm sorry, you know, I'll work with you to make sure that this, none of your people die again or whatever. Because the little stuff she did during the battle, to me was kind of weak. She did stuff to kind of bring down Namor to get him in a little trap, but they could have came up with something else. I do think the pacing, especially early, was bad. Like I said, if they had reduced some of those characters, the Everett Ross and the Ironheart girl, them being so much into little things that weren't necessary, like her little storyline with her school and her secret garage where she's doing stuff. It just didn't work. I just think they could have condensed some of that down. All of Everett Ross's stuff could have been condensed into like one or two scenes in the whole movie, and that would have done it. And like I said, I think there should have been an end credit scene where, she goes back to the U.S. and then, her car is delivered, but she opens the trunk or something, and there's the Ironheart suit. It's fresh from Wakanda. I feel like that would have been better than her actually her not even be trained to do that type of stuff, and her just getting into the battle when it's her they're trying to kill too. I felt like they should have protected her and not let her be a part of all that. But it's a Marvel movie, so you gotta go out with a bang. Everybody's gotta get involved. So with that said, this movie, it was better than I thought. My expectations were lowered because of the situation, but in the end, I had a fun time. It was emotional. They almost got me a couple times. And I think it was a good way to bring the Black Panther franchise back. Don't quite know where they're going to go with it. They do have a mid-credit scene that you got to feel like maybe that's where they're going with it. Now that part I won't spoil. I won't spoil the mid-credit scene. I will spoil that there's no end-credit scene. So don't sit through the whole, we sat there thinking that was something you said Black Panther will return. And it goes, that's it. So no end-credit scene. I guess they wanted to let all that breathe. They didn't want to send you home thinking about something else when they want you to really, process that this was an ode to Chadwick Boseman, so they didn't want to take the focus off that. I get it. And like I said, the mid-credit scene does bring in something great. That could be where they go in the future. It'd have to be way in the future now. But with King, they could do some things with that where you can bring back, you can have certain things happen to the Black Panther franchise that can bring it back to a certain feeling. And once you see it, you'll understand. So if I'm gonna score this, I'm gonna score it out of 10. I would definitely give it a 8.5. I want to give it a 9, but it was too long. Even though it moved quickly to me, but there was one part that just I was getting my eyes were getting a little heavy. So it was a little talky. It was not a ton of action. So I can't give it a 9 when it's not, you didn't quite get the battles as lengthy as you want them. And you didn't get enough of them. But story I thought was good, well done. It was probably the best that they could do without, taking longer for it to release. I thought the acting was great. Most of the characters played their character well. Most of the characters' motivation, everything made sense. And you had a great villain. And I want to see Namor back for more. So when you have a villain like a Loki, even a Killmonger who people was hoping would come back, you have characters like that, you did something right in the movie. And I definitely want to see Namor's character back in the MCU. I would love to see him help, but I still want him to be that kind of hard-edged person that, he ain't gonna trust everybody. He kind of trusted Shuri, but once she broke that trust, he was ruthless. So, I want to see that character come back, but not just be a super nice guy, not be a Captain America, a vanilla guy, but I want him to be the hard-edged Namor where, he's going to come, he's going to get you, he's going to go at you, but he's going to have a motivation and a reason for it. So all in all, 8.5 out of 10, enjoyed it, great time, I would recommend it. I'd go see it on the big screen. I wouldn't wait till Disney Plus. I would go see it. The humor, they didn't put too much humor where it was unbearable, but they put just enough humor in there where you're going to get a chuckle or two, and they put a lot of emotion in it. It's going to make you really feel that they are those characters. That's how good of acting that they did. You feel like that's the Kia, that's Shuri, that's Queen Ramonda. You feel like those are the real people, and the way they're reacting is very real emotion. So, and there's nothing you can say bad about that. When somebody's acting with what feels like real emotion, it really comes through and shines. So, once again, 8.5. Go out and see it. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. I know I ran a little long, but hopefully I can get back to maybe the Wrestling Minute, some NBA talk, just having fun here at the GOATcast. So everything will be in the links. YouTube, if you're on YouTube, the podcast stuff will be in the links. If you're listening from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever one, Spotify, the link to my YouTube channel will be there, so you can check me out either place. And I appreciate you guys. The links to my social media, to my email for any inquiries, anything you want to say, if you want to be on, if you want to guest, whatever you have, please check my links, check the description, and hit me up anytime. This is just for fun, so we will have a good time. So thank you again. Hope you enjoyed Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I know I did. My family did. So like I said, go out and see it. And with that said, I will wish you guys a great evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you hear this. Just have a great time. And enjoy your day. I'm out.